This is Jayanti from Dell. Actually, no, we heard the story of all of you. What we understood that no one is perfect from the beginning. We all learn along the experience and transform ourselves. But my question is like strongly I believe that we need to have a good support system at home, at office to grow and to excel in our career. So, what is your suggestion to create such support system? So, what was your experience?
Vidya, you want to give
I can go.
your role model?
I mean, for a long time, I was told that from all the senior women that I worked with, and I heard that you should have the right infrastructure and basics of the maid, the cook, all that. So I'm not going to talk about all of that. I think that is a given. If you earn enough, you deserve to have a system that works. So in my mind, I think that's a given. If you're not investing in that, then you need to look inward to fix that. But I think what is more important and is around the responsibilities you carry as a parent in my case, because I think that's a huge responsibility in shaping up the future, the future citizens of this world. So in my example, when I came back actually from the US, and I was a couple of years later, I was on the cusp of getting this promotion to managing director. I think it was in 2015, and at exactly the same time, my husband got this opportunity to move to Switzerland. He works for this company that is headquartered in Switzerland, and so it was a very big deal for him. It was also a very big deal for me that I'm not going to work for so many years and just throw this all away and walk out, behind him and figure out what is going to happen. So I made a very, very conscious choice and said, no, I'm not moving with you. I was nicer than that. I explained the rationale and all of that. And I knew that was a priority for me. So I think often we lose what is our own priority, like what is important to me. It was important to me that I deserve, seeing the finish line when I started and worked so hard to get to it. So what we ended up doing was that he went his way to Switzerland. I remained in my way here in Bangalore. And because I was working so hard, I realized that I'm not going to be spending any time with my children. So might as well send the children also with him. So he took the children to Switzerland, and
Isn't it fantastic?
and
This is
it was about
bravo.
a little over 2 years. And he, unlike India, obviously there's no big ecosystem there, and if it is also, it's extremely expensive. So he managed everything from getting them ready, school, cooking, dropping them, picking them, being back home in time to make dinner, like the whole hog. And all I did was, because I worked for Goldman Sachs, I got the flexibility to travel every month. I traveled every month, and I would be there for a week. Sometimes I would work out of there, or sometimes I would just take the week off. It's sometimes more than a week. So I traveled a lot around Europe. I would go land up there just for 2 weeks, enjoy the vacation, and then come back. So I think it's really the message. I think is really that we have to break the traditional stereotypes of what is expected from each individual. If the kids want their favorite dish, they don't come to me; they go to him, because he cooks far better than me. When they want to buy something, they come to me. They don't go to, him. I'm the Amazon, individual. And I think as organizations, it's also really important that the policies that we put in place, and we just in Goldman made this announcement, a couple of weeks back, that our, parenting leave is now gender neutral. So this 26 weeks that we give to both men and women, across fathers and mothers. And it's interesting now, because the first few conversations I'm having of fathers who now, need to go on 6 months, parenting leave, are now worrying about, oh God, if I go for 6 months, how am I going to now come back, and my integration, etc. So it's completely changing the dialogue. Now they will be in the same shoes that as women we have also been, going through. The thought around now senior people are also beginning to think like, okay, now men are also going to be going. They're also going to be coming back and sharing these examples. And so I think it's becoming a lot more, inclusive. So the short answer to your question is, I think being very clear on our priorities, and ultimately making sure that, both partners are equally contributing to the relationship. The kids are now back with me. They are here. He's in Switzerland.
Thanks, Vidya. Thank you. Shinam,
May
you
I
want to
just
say?
add?
Yeah. We're
I
running
think
out
the
of time,
key,
I know.
I think the key for sport infrastructure is in ourselves, right? As women, we tend to feel a lot more guiltier than men do if we have to choose our careers over home. And I think that is something that we need to get rid of from our own thinking and our own subconscious biases that we have. I go back to what Vinita said earlier today. We need to ask for support, we need to ask for people around us. One of the key things that has worked for me when I have been asking for support has been the trust that you generate in the system. If you are a good person at work and you're somebody that people want around, if you are a good parent, if you've been a good daughter, good daughter-in-law, good wife, people around you will understand and make the adjustments. I think support comes from that.
Thank you. I am so sorry. I would have loved this dialogue to continue. I had one, I'm not even looking at the behind me. I had one last question was, what Shah Rukh Khan says? Picture abhi baki hai mere dost, right? Can I have just a minute from them?
Can we do this? There's a coffee break after this.
In the break, but, okay. Anything unsaid, anything? Done? Don't let them have coffee. Just surround them with all your questions, but a round of applause.
Please stay on stage for a group photograph. Okay, please stay on stage for a group photograph.
Sure.
And also to accept a little token of appreciation from us. May I invite Ms. Vinita Bali to please come and give away the speaker certificates and gifts.
First, the 5-star ones. Sorry, just time. I don't know how time runs out in all of this. I also get one. It's been such a pleasure. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you very much,
Oh, we are putting a good
panelists.
picture. Do justice to this student.
Thank you very much, panelists, and Mr. Murli, and Vinita, for taking the time to present the certificates. Thank you so much. We'll now take a 15-minute tea break in the foyer outside. Please return to your seats when you hear the bell. Thank you. Please take your seats. I know it was a bit of a short tea break, but thank you for coming back so promptly. Prashant Shankaran is the Executive Director of Interweave Consulting, India's leading D&I consulting organization. He is an alumnus of XLRI with over 30 years of experience, the first half of which was in the HR function, including HR head roles in Madura Garments, Motorola India, and Digital. The second half of his career has been in general management, heading a business unit for Hewlett-Packard, and as the COO of Indicom Global. He is passionate about entrepreneurship and guides many startups as a mentor at the Entrepreneur Development Cell of IIM Bangalore. Prashant also serves on the boards of a few organizations in the social sector. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Prashant Shankaran.
Good morning. And I can see a lot of familiar faces here. So before I start, thanks for being here and thanks for inviting me over. I'm standing in for Anuradha Mukherjee, who couldn't make it today. So let us get on with it. I work with this company called Interweave, that is in terms of an identity. And the topic is this. I'm just going to tell you a few stories. And we will see what we can derive out of that. The first one, in a way, is a tribute to the first mentor that I had when I started working way back in 1985. That was my first job, and my first mentor was a lady. She was fantastic in terms of almost everything that I wished to be when I started my career. So I walk into this organization, which is full of men, and then there is this one lady who's a department head, who, in a way, didn't have what we today call the executive presence or anything like that. She wore a simple cotton salwar kameez. She had a long hair in a single plait, and she came to office in the morning with 2 packs of Charminar charms. And even when, many of us were very hesitant to sit in the office and smoke, we used to go out and smoke. She sat in her room, she chain smoked, she did her job extremely well, and I used to be in awe of her. And the first time we interacted was that, I was sitting on my table in the evening, around 6:30 in the evening, and the office timings are till 5:30, and she normally leaves for home around 6:15. I normally leave for home around 11. So she came by my table, stopped, and looked at me and said, "Look, I believe you are working late every day." And she's not even in my department. She was the peer of my boss. So I said, "Yeah, you know how it is, a lot of work, you know how my boss is, all that." She just looked at me and said, "I think all that is bullshit. I think you are just inefficient." So, and she said, "Look, tomorrow when I am leaving, I'm going to come by this table and you just pack up and we'll go out. And that's it. You better start planning and you better start learning how to plan your work." So I said, "Okay," and all that, and I thought she will forget it. But next day, around 6 o'clock, she comes to my table and she just stands there. She doesn't say anything. So I dump everything into the drawer, lock it, pick up my bag, and we walk to Churchgate Station. And she takes the Bandra local, whatever, and I tell her, "Look, I have to go to Shivri, I'll take the other line, I have to meet a friend, wait for her train to go, run back to office, open my desk, sit and work." And next day morning she comes, and she says, "When did you go home?" So I said, "Yeah, we walked out together." And she said, "Yeah, who are you trying to bullshit?" Right? She was an amazing leader. And, she, in 1985, was a huge inspiration for me, and I think a lot of things which I am today, I need to really thank her for. Second story, I moved up in my career a little bit. From Bombay, I got transferred to a place called Nigadi, small town near Pune. We had an establishment there, and I was in charge of administration and various other things. And we had a set of management trainees to come. And they had finished their training in Mumbai, and they were to come to Pune. And they were to report to my office at 9:30 on a Monday morning. Monday morning, I come to office around 8:30, and I'm sitting down, open the newspaper, and realize it's a Bharat Bandh. All transport has been cancelled. Nothing can move. So my team member came and said, look, I think you can release your day and you can do other things because I don't think these kids can reach Pune. So we started doing other things, talking about what else to do. There was a knock on the door at 9:20, and this young girl stands there. And so I said, yeah. So she said, yeah, I'm supposed to be reporting here today, 9:30. That's my training schedule. So I said, how did you come? So she said, I just went to the depot and hitched a ride in the tank truck because essential services were allowed to move. So I hitched a ride in a tank truck and came. The driver and the crew were very, very helpful. And actually I came with police escort, and none of the boys had turned up. Right? I moved on from that company after some time, but we were in touch. She has done extremely well in that company and outside. She worked in, somebody talked about, I think it was Vinitha Bali who worked in South America. She worked in South America, came back, became a single mother, did phenomenally well in her career. One more team member I would like to give a tribute to was a junior member of the team. Are you okay? Yeah. Okay, let me move on. Junior member of the team came from a very lower middle class family. Father passed away very early. Mother was in Mangalore, she was in Mangalore. And we had an internal promotion from clerical cadre to officer cadre. She took the exam and took a brave decision to move alone to Chennai, leaving her mother behind. Extremely hard worker, did brilliant work, no professional qualifications. And one day evening, when I was in my house around 8 o'clock, bell rings, I go and open the door, this girl is standing there, her eyes are red, it is teared up, she's not crying, but she got 2 bulky files in her hand. And she said, look, tomorrow I won't be in office, but I had gone to office, I finished everything, tomorrow there's a recruitment drive, these are the papers, everything is in order. I also briefed Murali, who's a colleague, so can you please handle that, and I have to rush. So what happened? She said, about an hour back, I got a call saying that my mother has been murdered in Mangalore. So then we got the official missionary working, got her to Mangalore, took care of everything, but what I'm saying is, that was the attitude of that girl, right? And she came back, again, another story of doing phenomenally well, and I am now connecting these stories to what Ms. Bali said about, it is not about gender. And I'm using these extreme examples maybe just to highlight that, right? It's not about gender, it is about blazing your own trail, come what may. And when you do that, I think people sit up and take notice. People, it's like Moses walking on water. Water actually parts, right? Okay, so this is one perspective, that gender has no bearing in the leadership journey of a person, man, woman. You are a career person, and it doesn't matter. Let me also tell you a couple of other stories. To PhD or not to PhD, right? So we run a program on women's leadership, and in one of the tea breaks, one of the brightest participants was sharing her story and saying, look, this is not actually what I want to do. And she was in the hypo list of that company, she was on fast track, all of that, but she's saying, look, this is not what I want to do. I wanted to do my PhD. I was a brilliant student, finished my post-graduation, and wanted to do my PhD. Then my mother told me, look, if you do your PhD, you won't get a husband. You will need, and we want somebody who's better qualified than you are. And how many guys are there out there like that? And how many of that would you really want to get married to, right? So her mother told her, look, relax, you get married, and if your husband is okay with it, do your PhD later, right? So after much of this thing and family push and whatever, she decided not to do a PhD, got married, joined this company, started doing extremely well. When we were having this conversation, she was about 31 or 32 years old. So we asked her, so why are you not doing it now? If that is your passion and career is not your passion, why are you not doing it now? Isn't your husband supportive of it? She said, husband is extremely supportive. I said, no, then what is holding you back? So no, it's my mother. She says, look, you should have a child now, and your biological clock is ticking. And if you don't do that now, then it will be too late, etc., 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 etc. I am a little confused, but at the moment I think, and she said something very profound. She said, look, I am a person who doesn't like conflicts. I am a person who doesn't like to confront. I am a person who likes harmony. And right now, in this context, it is harmonious. I am doing well in my job. Yes, my heart is not in it, but I can do it in my sleep, and I can do it well. And I'm happy, and maybe we'll plan a family. My husband might get a posting abroad, and I might just go off with him, right? So that was another story. There is a close friend of mine, and this is in the early 2000. We were all in the senior management, middle management levels. She calls me up one day and said, look, there is this team visiting from the headquarters, and we had a good meeting with presentations, etc. In the evening, my boss and a couple of senior managers met with me, and they have offered me this role in the UK. And it is not just a functional role, it has also got elements of a P&L. So I said, congratulations, aren't you taking, when are you going? He said, no, I don't think I'll take it. Why? I don't think I'm confident. I don't think I can do it well. I don't want to be set up for failure. So I asked her, suppose the same thing was asked to your husband, would he take it? She said, yes. Is he better prepared than you are? No. But there is, in her mind, a lack of confidence which stopped her from doing that. Way back, when we were growing up, I was into sports. I played for my district, but my cousin's sister was much, much better. I think she would have been an earlier PV Sindhu if she had continued her badminton. But 14 years of age, she stopped. Yeah. 3 minutes? Yeah. So, I went around, played in many states, etc., etc. She never got a chance. What I wanted to also pick here is, there's a perspective too, that there's a patriarchal structure which is real, at work and at society, which puts a different kind of challenges on a lot of women. I'm not saying all women, but a lot of women, and we know some of them, we would have interacted with many of them, and that is real. And that grappling with that in the journey of leadership is also real. That angst, that struggle, that frustration, the uncertainty, the insecurity is real. So where do we go from here? The intervention part and mentoring part I'm not touching because I think most of us know it, and a lot of that is also myth. But the first part is for the organization to provide a space where people can reflect and reaffirm what is actually that you want to do. What is success for me? How do I define that success? And what am I willing to stake for that success? And then encourage, make way for them to do. And the last one, and I'm glad that, which was touched upon earlier, again by Mrs. Bali, we need to train the men. Because 80 to 90% of the organization at the senior levels are made of men. And men has to change many ways of their construct, the way they are brought up, the way they carry their biases, and also they need to also let go of this masculinity that we hold very, very strongly. And when we do that, it becomes easier for women then to claim that space, to come up and be integrated into that whole structure. I think my time is up, so thank you very much.
Thank you, Prashant, for sharing your experiences and stories with us. And thank you for reinforcing what Ms. Bali said, that it's not about gender, it's about blazing your own trail. It is now my pleasure to call on stage Ms. Aruna Padmanabhan, Executive Vice President, HR at Capgemini, to share her insights on some of the best practices in women talent management. Aruna brings with her 20-plus years in human resources and has shaped high-performing cultures in Fortune 500 and product companies. Before joining Capgemini, Aruna worked with IBM as the Executive Director, Global Business Services, Asia Pacific, based out of Singapore. She has multinational and multicultural experience working with Digital Equipment Corporation, Compaq Computers, Motorola India, and Freescale Semiconductor Inc. based in Austin, Texas. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Aruna.
Good morning. Can you all hear me? Thank you. This is a nice segue into what I'm going to speak. I just heard Prashant speaking. Prashant is my ex-colleague, so he spoke about what best practices companies should have, kind of a thing. So every time I give a talk, I give a lot of talks. So before I do that, for me, it's very important to either run in the morning or walk in the morning. So I did the same thing today in Cubbon Park. And I had planned my talk, but in the morning when I went to that walk, I saw this young girl, very young, 5 years old, 6 years old, coming with her dad. And the dad is asking her, "What time is it?" She said, 7:30. And he said, "Can you say that better?" She said, 7:30. Okay, and he was correcting her very nicely. So that took me back in time when my grandfather used to teach me, and he used to always tell me to say 7:30. Okay? And I've been one of these very fortunate women who have grown up. I've never been told, "You're a woman, you can't do something." That's how I was brought up. Then I went into a girls' school for high school. Then I went to a co-ed college. And then I came into the workforce. And 25 years, I'm here. But what is strange is when I look back, there are many people who were in school who never went to college. Many women who were with me. Many women who went to college never went into the workforce. And many times when I look back, there are very few of us who are standing here today. So, question is, are we in a level playing ground, right? So that's my thing. So I always make sure that I'm in organizations which always talk about gender diversity. It's a very important thing for women to be in leadership. And so I'm going to talk to you about this great company who I'm with now, Capgemini. So, thank you. So, a couple of things. It's not moving. All right. So, very clearly, I think I want to talk to you about our strategy, what we are doing. So, it's very important for all organizations to increase the amount in all aspects of diversity, which is part of our strategy. And it's not enough just to have diversity. I'm sure all of you talk about inclusion. That's also extremely important. And for us, we are in consulting and services. For us, our clients are our bread and butter. So it's also important for us as to how we include our clients as part of our diversity journey. So I believe that anything we start as a part of strategy has to start from the top. So we strongly believe the culture of diversity is driven from all levels of leadership, and it's very important for us to partake in the journey, so we get the employees to partake in the journey. And diversity in leadership, which is extremely important for us, and we have several women leaders today, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that. And then we have a great ecosystem of inclusion. I'll also speak to you a little bit about how we are inculcating that culture all over. And then the client focus. Those are the things I'm going to talk to you about. I'm also going to, so you will find, I'll spend time on what we do. Okay. So one of our flagship programs which we have is called Power Ahead. And we believe that it's very important for our senior leadership women to be encouraged to be part of this great program. So we do take high potential women. We've built it on 3 pillars, which is education, exposure, and experience. These are the three areas we develop them in. So just day before yesterday, I'm very glad to call out that AmCham recognized this program as a flagship program in India, and Smriti Irani actually presented an award for it. So, thank you. So as part of this program, you will see that we believe that it has to be very inclusive. So what we do is that one is not just, we take them to IIM for their week-long education. That's not good enough for us. We do brown bag lunches. We have expertise sessions. Day before yesterday, we had two people. One is Radhika Gupta, who came and spoke to our women. She is the CEO of, Edelweiss Mutual Fund, and for those of you who haven't seen, she's done a great TED Talk called Girl with a Broken Neck. You should go and see it. It's really great. And then we had Vineet Nair coming and speaking to the people. So it was a great program for us, and we also send them to several external forums, and we measure ourselves by seeing how many of these women actually rotate in their roles, how many of them get promoted, and what are they doing at all parts of time. And that's our flagship program. The second program I want to talk to you is, we call it as Leaders for Tomorrow. You would have seen it in the press, where we are developing leadership who would go to different parts of the world to take leadership positions. And this is for both men and women, but we have substantial number of women who are part of this program. And one of the people actually who came and spoke to the team was Vinita Bali, 2 months ago, and that's one of the part of the leadership sessions which she handled for us. So here we actually put them through a lot of different experiences. We put them through stretch assignments. We give them a lot of projects to do, and it's a 6-month program. And post that, we are also measuring as to how many of these people will go and take positions all over the world for us. While we're talking about all this, we cannot forget about the women who go on maternity. So we have a program called Fair Welcome. Fair means farewell, and welcome back to the workforce. We lose a lot of women during their maternity time. So we came up with this program that we give them a mentor who is with them throughout their maternity. And if people take long maternity leaves, then we also get them back and train them in different skills and bring them back into the workforce. And it's very important for all of us sitting in this room, because we're all leaders, that we cannot forget the people who are going on maternity leave, because it's important, it's biological for women to have children, so it's very important for us to bring them back into the workforce. The fourth program we have is called Captivate. This is about the women who have taken break in their careers and they want to come back and join the workforce. So we have a special drive with our recruitment teams, and we also work with agencies who bring us back these women who want to get back into the workforce. It's not just enough to bring them back. What we also do is we give them a mentor who can mentor them through. And if these people have to be trained, because reskilling is extremely important, we reskill them and deploy them back into the workforce. So that's very important for us, and that's an area of, I think, inclusion which we've done very well. One of the things I think Prashant was also speaking about was that how do we educate people? We have a great program called Culture, Brain, and Bias, right? And this, we are running it for all our managers in the company. And those of you who follow us on LinkedIn, we just posted a lot of pictures who went through this program. And here, we talk about the areas of biases. We're looking at recruitment bias. You can have a performance management bias. You can have a career bias. There are different areas where biases, unconscious bias comes in. So this program addresses it with the managers. It has several case studies, and we train all our managers to ensure that we include people into the workforce. Last but not the least, we have the Impact Together events. This is with our clients. So we bring the clients in, we do several roundtables anytime the clients come in with our diversity population. We also do a lot of events along with our clients, which has really helped us to bring teams together. So, in conclusion, I want to say, I just want to say, do we have a glass ceiling? I believe we do. Okay? And is the glass ceiling as thick as what it used to be? Maybe 1 mm thinner. If you know glass, 1 mm is a lot. So it's 1 mm thinner. And is it the responsibility of all of us who are sitting in this room to actually help break the glass ceiling? Yes, it is. And should there be a day when there is no glass ceiling? I believe we should have one. And last but not the least, everyone has the right to have that 7:30 moment, right? So, friends, let's all do this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Aruna. May I invite Mr. Sankalp Saxena to please come and present Aruna with a certificate. Thank you both. Now, Aruna spoke about the glass ceiling, which segues beautifully into our next session, which is the CEO discussion, where head honchos will share their experiences and view on harnessing women talent, and will provide insights on how to do it successfully. This panel will be moderated by Ms. Nandini Sarkar, who heads the Global Diversity and Inclusion for Boeing in India. Nandini has over 2 decades of experience and has extensively worked across all diversity spectrum, as well as equal employment opportunity compliance. She has been bestowed with international awards and recognitions for her work in the space of D&I, within the organizational boundaries and beyond. She is the convener for policy and advocacy pillar of Indian Women Network Karnataka Chapter, CII, a member of BCIC, WIT, and many other industry associations. She is a strong ally and a member of the Pride Circle. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Ms. Nandini Sarkar.
A warm afternoon. How are you feeling we are standing between you and lunch. And yesterday was Children's Day, and I had that moment of letting the child in me loose. I had that eureka moment, because this is one of the panel which has stellar cast of CEOs who will be talking about what it means for them to be a diversity and how do they drive inclusion. Now, having said that, you know that the CEOs have pressure from the investors and clients, which has actually made sustainability move up the boardroom agenda. Now, having said that, the companies have become more conscientious and strategic in the way they address the need for environmental, governance matters, and social matters, not within the organizational premises, but also outside the organization. Do we agree on that? Yes? So what's the link between governance and D&I and harnessing the power of women talent? The link between D&I and sustainability begins with having the right leadership in the boardroom. And the commitment of the leadership in the boardroom is well exhibited here as we invite our stellar cast, as I mentioned, our panelists. So let me first take the privilege in inviting Marco. So he is the country manager and MD of Adecco with rich global experience. And for him, he says, I am diversity because I strongly believe that talent has nothing to do with gender. And for him, inclusion, he says, it means broadening your perspective and realizing the inclusion is not about just giving everyone the same things, but giving everyone what they need. Very powerful statement. So with this, may I invite Marco on the stage? Our next panelist is Sankalp, and he's the Senior Vice President and MD Operations at Nutanix. And he says, I am diversity. That is simply not negotiable. And he says, inclusion to him means it's getting comfortable being uncomfortable. Sankalp, please come on stage. Our next panelist, Richard. He's the board member of KPMG Dubai and former CEO of KPMG India. For him, he says and believes he needs to be firm before self. Humility, compassion, and decisive leadership defines him. Richard, please come on stage. And the chairman and co-founder of Team Lee's Services is here, Manish, who is a diversity, and you will see the exhibition of the same as he walks up the stage. Yes? Okay. So we'll have a round-robin question session, and we will hear more from a dialogue perspective rather than pointed question, and we would give more chances to audience interaction because we hardly get the CEOs on stage to talk about what it means to them to be diverse and inclusive. Now, work is accomplished by human beings and who we refer to as talent. Each of us are uniquely complex and skilled. That's the diversity. Now, what has been your individual mantra when it comes to managing diversity dimensions at workplace? Anyone can take that.
Yeah. Let me kick it off. Let me tie the mantra to a quote that I read that stayed with me throughout. And it was a quote by George Bernard Shaw, and I will make it gender agnostic. And he said, the reasonable person adapts himself to the world, whereas the unreasonable one persists in adapting the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable person. That is what we're looking for. We're looking for a few unreasonable minds that can challenge the status quo, that can look beyond gender, disability, LGBTQ, what have you, and really help shape and drive the innovation that we're looking to deliver in our space at Nutanix. So that really resonated for me on that basis.
So you talked about being unreasonable, and for you, Manish, you said diversity means cognitive diversity to you. So having said that, if you bring in the cognitive perspective of thinking, where would you place the momentum behind harnessing the women talent?
I think there are two different questions. One is, why is women's labor force participation in India so low? Right. Which may be a different question from this audience on what can we do to, include women on the faster track or on the right track. Those are two different questions, and I can answer them differently. But, from my perspective, India has created the world's largest democracy on the infertile soil of the world's most hierarchical society. And so we have to really, and history matters, countries are path dependent as historians like to say. So, but I think as a country or as companies or as individuals, it's not about culture being an unchangeable thing, as he mentioned. When you start having cultural explanations, people have cultural explanations for India's poverty, and that's the soft bigotry of low expectations at worst, or maybe racism at best, right? So the same way that the notion that somehow this culture is an opening balance or this can't be changed, to me is not true. And as Dumbledore tells Harry Potter in Chamber of Secrets, right? So it is our choices more than our abilities that reveal what we really are. And so I think those choices are changing. I do think policy is struggling. I don't think any economist in India has been able to explain why women's labor force participation has fallen from 31% to 19%. We're a little above Saudi Arabia and Iran. I've heard explanations like leisure, I've heard explanations like a remittance economy, I've heard, the most credible one probably is formalization, and we'll get into that. But I think that it is a question which we don't, you can only treat a disease if you know, if you treat the symptom, you'll go wrong. You have to treat the disease. And we don't understand why women's labor force participation has fallen. If we have more credible explanations on the panel, I'd love to hear that, or in the audience.
So, Richard, now as Manish mentioned about treating the disease and not the symptoms, now at workplace, equality needs to be a business strategy is something that we all hear about. Now, what's your take on equality, and how would you want to position equity in the scheme of the level playing field?
Okay, thank you. Good morning, everybody. And I think, Manish, you really raised a very good point. Manish has always been a great speaker. I admire him for bringing new insights into various topics, very well read. But leaving that on the side, I think, see, I've grown up in a consulting firm all my life. I've never worked outside a consulting firm. And honestly, I have never seen, personally experienced, any inequality between men and women. I mean, when it comes to pay scale, when it comes to promotion, when it comes to hiring, when it comes to... And yet you may ask me the question, why aren't there more partners in the Big Four at women partners? And you can't clap with one hand, you clap with two hands. And I think both sides need to, and I think that's very important, we should know. Secondly, my philosophy has always been that we must bring, you see, when I became the CEO of KPMG, and I realized one of our biggest challenges was people. Because if you have a happy workforce, clients get taken care of well, okay? And so what I did, I took one of my consulting partners, lady consulting partners, and told her, would you like to take on this role? And she said, no, I'm not going to go into HR, and this is a back office role. I said, it's not a back office role, it's a front office role. And I think, finally, she relented and she took that role and did a wonderful job. First of all, you elevated the role onto the leadership team. So she sat on the top table and she was able to participate in the strategy and everything else that goes with it. So for me, I've always held it should be merit-driven. And it's not about just, see, if you promote somebody because he's a woman or because she's a woman or something else, we're going to suffer. Because organizations struggle with wrong promotions. So I think even, I remember I was sitting once, we used to do these small round tables with women 1 level, 2 level below partner. And we used to try to ask them, what can the firm do more for you all, etc. So one of the girls, she said, a few of the girls said, oh, we should get more, promoted faster, more flexible, etc. One of the ones said, no. I want to earn it on my merit. And I think that is what is going to drive women. And the other one which I always held is, you take a chariot. It has 2 wheels, men and women. And if you have a diversified leadership, I think it just helps the firm. It just helps the organization in growing, in being better. And I think anybody who ignores the female gender is doing it at their own cost. Because there is creativity, there is passion, there is multitasking, a lot of qualities and skills which come, and I think it's good for the organization to have them there.
Great perspective. Thank you, Richard, for that. So coming to Marco, since you are into people services, right? And we just heard about women not ready to take up because they always think they are yet not ready, or maybe they are not apt for that role. That's one aspect. The second is the pay equity. There is a concern because we know there is pay inequities in most of the cases. Are they not good negotiators? And there is also the gender of diversity hiring. So all culminating to you giving those people aspects back to your clients. How does this interplay from your lens?
Yeah, thank you, and good afternoon to all of you. Just one thing, maybe, if I can. I think we need to link this panel with the representation of women as CEOs in companies. We are 4 men here, and this I feel a bit guilty when I was looking at who would come here and talk about why we male end up, made something to end up in this situation and having to talk about how can we, come back from the mistakes we made in the past. So this is something that I'm actually fighting also within Adecco and in all my conversation with clients, because my firm belief is it's not a pipeline issue anymore. So we cannot think that there's not enough women in the market and that we can say, I cannot find the right candidate, so I need to take a man for this. It's not a pipeline problem anymore. There's a fantastic and amazing, well-educated women across the world, not only in India or in Europe. It's more a problem of growing. Once the female population is within companies, what do I do to make them grow through the ranks and reach position in leadership that are much more balanced? I think this is something that is missing across. I have an international background, and this is not just an Indian problem. This is not just an Italian problem. It's across the board. We have, we can see the same thing. One of the things we can do is, first of all, make sure that we have the right HR policies within companies, making sure that we have development plans that are tailor-made also for women to be able to raise the ranks. We need to be able to destroy those unconscious biases we were discussing before, find them and understand what are those in order to make sure that women don't just stop at the middle management but reach the leadership level. I've been reading a lot of articles about performance of companies, financial performance of companies and composition of boards across the world, across sector. It is a given, it is factually demonstrated that a more diverse board, a more diverse leadership creates much higher financial performance for companies across the board. So it's not something that we do because we feel guilty of what we have created. It's something that we do because we want to make sure that we give an equal opportunity and we perform better as companies.
Thank you. Yes, please.
I have been looking at all those studies which say that companies who are more diverse have more profits. And I'd be a little careful in overselling that, right? Because one of the fundamentals of science is not confusing correlation with causation. Maybe successful companies are just enlightened in other ways. So we can't prove that. I mean, I don't want to oversell it. I think we can prove that diverse groups are more creative. I think they're more productive. I think surgeons make less mistakes, when the team is diverse around them. So I think we can say that. But I think it's a little early for us to say that profitable companies are more diverse, because successful companies may be enlightened in more ways. So what we're thinking is causation, maybe correlation. That doesn't mean we shouldn't do diversity, because productivity, creativity, and making less mistakes are valuable for their own sake. But we always look for what drives performance, and I think sometimes we all struggle with that. But if we want to isolate, we don't want to oversell this prematurely. There is, I do a lot of advocacy work, and there is some such thing as premature load bearing in your arguments, because then you give stuff to people which can be proved or disproved. I've been thinking about the financial performance one a lot, but sometimes I think, successful companies are just enlightened in various ways, and maybe that's what we're seeing.
Love the diverse perspective here, Manish. So you are a columnist in Indian Express and have recruited about 1.7 million employees in the last 10 years. Now, how has it been to create a platter of diverse workforce mix? And in the scheme of that, where do you see legislations and policies that are internal to the organization have played a part? Has it enabled more women to come into the workforce, or is it an impediment sometimes? Your thoughts?
No, I believe that labor market outsiders, whether they're Dalits, whether they're women, whether they're people from small towns, whether they're people who don't speak English as articulately as all of us do, there are many forms of labor market outsiders. And the solutions to labor market outsiders at a policy or a systemic level are the same. They are formalization, urbanization, industrialization, financialization, and human capital. There's no difference between what a Ministry of Dalit employment will do, what a Ministry of Women employment would do, what a Ministry of Jat employment would do, and what a Ministry of Employment would do. I think the more we formalize the economy, it's now down to 85% informal. It used to be 91%. The faster we do that, the better it'll be for everybody. The faster we urbanize, India only has 52 cities with more than 1 million people. China has 375. We have 6 lakh villages. 2 lakh of those villages have less than 200 people. It's highly unlikely that we'll be able to make them as inclusive. So my perspective is that, it's really hard at a policy level or at the structural level at the National Skill Mission, or even in public sector organizations. I'm on the board of RBI, I'm on the board of CAG, and the number of women passing that objective exam has come down progressively when we shifted the exam to be, because it's now 85% engineers, right? Even this year in the IAS batch at Missouri, it's 92% of them are engineers in the IAS. That was never true when about 5 years ago, we changed the exam to be more objective, and then that objectivity obviously biased in favor of engineers. So I think that at a policy level, the structural changes that India needs are formalization, urbanization, industrialization, financialization, and obviously human capital. But anyway, there are more women lawyers in law school today than there are men. It's changing in many other areas that I can think of. So I don't know at an individual level. There's obviously people here who know more than me on what can be done, I think, at a company level. But at a policy level, I am less enamored by solutions because India calibration is a completely different scale from most other countries. So, if you change that one little mohalla, it's not going to make sense. We have to do stuff that changes the country.
Thank you for that. So, to Richard, governance is key for leading to act and risk mitigation. Now, towards building a sustainable workforce and workplaces, what's your take on harnessing the women talent? And in the future of work, how do you see gender inclusion playing a big part?
I'll take the second question first, the future of work as we see it. Because one of the big challenges that women have is flexible hours, working from home, etc. And we can see the future of work moving more and more into that direction. So I think that will enable many more women to come into the workforce and do, you see, because look at it like this, I can tell you from a consulting at KPMG where we were losing our maximum talent between manager and senior manager. I mean, people could have gone on to become partners because they got married, they got kids, and they moved on. And some of them came back, some of them did not, or they did something very different. So the point which I have is that and that is all qualified talent. I mean, they are either MBAs or chartered accountants or engineers or whatever, and they suddenly become non-productive. Okay? So I think that is the talent that we need to, and we saw Capgemini putting up, they have a program where they get people back, which is a fantastic program. But I think one very important point I want to put out here, because the challenge and the question is to be asked, I've taken this 1 year maternity break or 1.5 years or whatever, and now I'm at a different level from my colleague who was with me. I think somewhere organizations and people have to understand, can we bring them back at the same level? And I'm putting a very provocative kind of thing out here, because I think it's important, because one should realize that they have some skills which when they took off, and that skills can be brought to organizations, and I think that is something which one needs to consider. Because, one day I was watching TV and I don't know, Google or somebody, they were interviewing and they said, we hired this lady who won a knitting competition. What would Google hire a lady who wins a knitting competition? We hired her for a skill for being the best. And that's what we were looking for. When we hired that person, we can train them for whatever other things you want. So I think that's the first question. As far as governance is concerned, I think that's to come with the top table. It has to come at the board level, it has to come at the CEO level, it has to sit at the leadership team level, it needs to be drummed from the top. It cannot be, on your screensavers, that we believe in this, put on cafeteria, billboards. It actually has to be lived in our trainings, in the way we actually do it. How do we actually keep reinforcing this again and again? And these unconscious bias, which we keep talking of it, will slowly go. It's going to take time. It's not going to happen tomorrow. Let's be very clear. I'll just give one small example to illustrate my point. I was listening to this very famous woman coach. I've forgotten her name, but I remember this incident which she said. She said she was talking to one of her male coaches who was also very famous, and he got to train two people in an organization, a man and a woman, both at the same level. Both were now up for promotion, so he was given both these people to coach. The guy he coached for business skills, how to improve business, how to improve sales. The woman, how to become more confident, how to become, so you know who actually went up. So this unconscious bias, what she was trying to say, there's an unconscious bias as to what a woman brings to the table and what a man brings. And I think that is something that needs to go out. And this can be driven only at the top level. And this, when organizations actually move there, you see, for example, I keep hearing about this pay, salaries not being equal. I've never seen it. I've never lived in a place, because if there is a manager, if it's a man or woman, they get the same salary. Their partner, they get the same salary. There is no reason why we don't go and hire. So I have not come across that personally, but obviously I'm hearing it so much means it's real and it's there. And I think we need to work on it. But I believe that governance is very important, which comes from driven at the board level and down from the CEO, who actually brings, believes in it. Actually, it also comes from the belief, because if it is not on the top table, if it is not driven at the CEO's agenda, I don't think many things get done in the world. Because then it will become one part of HR. And one more important point I want to put is, many of these initiatives, because I can tell you one very simple thing, when corporate governance first came in, it's not different from your governance, what you're saying. It was, okay, there's one guy doing corporate governance. When digital came in, oh, somebody's doing digital strategy. If it is not part of your main strategy, forget it. It's not going to happen. Because then it's going to be held by somebody who's going to do it, and it's not going to be part of it. So till diversity and inclusion doesn't become part of the main fulcrum of the company, that everybody believes in it and says, okay, we want to get it done, it will not get done at the pace at which it is. Because of the patriarchal society, the earlier speaker spoke about it. I mean, it is so, this thing out there, it's so visible. I mean, how actually women treat their sons and daughters, it starts there. And I mean, we can go on giving examples. I don't want to, I think we need men to believe that this is something they need to contribute. So when we see a lot of women here, it should have been equal number of men, women.
I had that in mind. I was about to say.
Because we are preaching to the converted. So the guys who need to listen to this are not here. That's my view.
Thank you for mentioning that. I was talking to Parul during the breaks, and I said, we should have had at least 50% male colleagues sitting here, because that's where the change needs to start from. Because that is the dominant group in our workplaces. Now, moving on to Sankalp. Now, you identify and mentor startups and incubate great ideas. Now, when we do about that, incubating great ideas leads to innovation. How do you want to kind of link up innovation to harnessing the women talent at workplaces?
So I think, Nandini, to your point, the data says we can do a much better job at it. And I worry about statistics that put us into a comfort zone that says we've arrived. Right? Now, in our own organization, year on year, I'll share a stat with you, we grew by 48% on our diversity index.
Wow.
That's nice.
Not really wow. Numbers are very deceptive in that sense. It's a false feel-good, right? I believe only the paranoid survive, or complacency is a kiss of death in this journey, right? So when we're trying to incubate and encourage people to go out on a limb and really kind of fail and fail fast and not have a penalty associated with that, we tend to be entirely agnostic of gender, race, culture, what have you. Innovation for us happens on a global scale, right? India's innovation equation is certainly scaled for us, as of our other global sites. In encouraging people to take that risk, we certainly need to embrace and mentor and guide to the best of our abilities. And that's where initiatives like NASCOM, I'm fortunate to be part of the NPC initiative for the next 2 years, where we're trying to drive product innovation from 8 billion to 80 billion in India in the next 5 years. Help at least spark that thought and create a trajectory for us to pursue. Will we get there, won't we get there is less material, right? The fact that it's not implied or implicit, but it's an explicit agenda, helps keep it on the radar. Similarly for us, we have 4 strategic initiatives in India. 1 is Great Minds, 2 is Imbibing Innovation. The 3rd one is Diversity and Inclusiveness explicitly, and the 4th is .Heart, which is Giving Back. So it can't be subtle, it can't be overt, it needs to be woven into the fabric of the organization, and we need to live it in many different ways. It is not a checkbox workshop. You know, attend it once a year and you're certified and the organization's great and we're doing really well with that, right? In terms of one of the points, Marco, I think you touched upon, I would like to take this moment to introduce you to my Old Boys Network, and 3 of our fearless leaders are here with us. So if the 3 fearless leaders wouldn't mind in the Old Boys Network just standing up, Shobhana in the back heads up our business strategy function globally. Parimala heads up our TA function for India. And Ramya has just joined us to head up the HRBP. So that's my Old Boys Network here. I stand in minority in that regard as well, and it's wonderful. The other part we worry about in driving these types of measures is diversity does not equal inclusion. Those are 2 different animals. And we need to treat them differently, or we need to solve them differently. In our case, one of our cultural principles, and you shared this up front, was get comfortable being uncomfortable. You know, as part of the transgender initiatives, we had Dr. Akai come and talk about, and she's a transgender leader, not a transgender activist, about her personal journey. And yes, it was very uncomfortable to hear about what her life had thrown at her, and it was inspiring to see how she stood up to that. But the more of that we do in solving this, in taking a multi-parameter or multimodal approach versus a checkbox approach that says I've attended the workshop or I've been trained to not have an unconscious bias, the more we manifest that in the day-to-day, I think the better off we are. You know, we've got several such examples, and I'll share one with you. It's a shameless plug, and you know, we did this thing for International Women's Day. It was a notebook. Engineers love writing things. We did an International Women's Day notebook where we put in quotes from 12 famous women, right, from all spans and all walks of life. And it was something that helped remind us on a day-to-day basis, right, reflect or remind us of what that power or potential could be. And in that regard, I think we had our own MasterCard moment, in that the value associated with that was invaluable. We have 100 of these, so I know we didn't have enough for the audience, but please feel free if you're so inclined. Parul has them available. But these were small touch points for us in trying to solve a very large and complex problem.
So if I have to summarize what I just heard from you, one is to be intentional about diversity and inclusion, and these 2 are 2 big animals, and they are different. The second thing that I heard from you is you brought in the concept of intersectionality, where you're talking about gender and you're talking about the dimensions that can be interwoven into the gender aspect. And gender is, again, binary, non-binary. So it's a huge amount of dialogue that can go around that. And I know we don't have enough time. But moving on from that point on to you, Marco. Now, you've had immense international experience. And you've been in India for quite some time now, in Chennai and now in Bangalore. How do you see this quotient working from the spectrum of your work environment and your clients who has differing demands when it comes to diversity hiring? Is it number, is it quota, is it reservation, or is it meritocracy and skill alignment? How would you want to kind of throw some light on that?
Yeah. So I would say it's a blend of all of them. It's difficult for me to, pinpoint one and say this is. We have, we have clients here or in any other part of the world that still nowadays ask for a very specific gender, hiring. There's much more progressive, advanced, and clients that look at it in the proper way. So I think it's a blend. I wouldn't say it's a Chennai, Bangalore, or an Indian problem. As I said before, this is across continents. I come from a country, Italy, which is very close in terms of positioning of women in society. I always think it starts at home. my wife is Dutch, so just 30 seconds of myself. The Netherlands and Italy, you can think of a cultural diversity like Delhi and Chennai. So so that's the conversation I have with my wife every day at home. And at times I feel much closer to how the perception of cultures, hierarchy, or extended family with India than with the Netherlands. And a lot of the discussion I had with my wife, and I have with my wife, is the positioning of the amount of work that the man does at home, in terms of household, and how this, might be an invisible blocker for careers for women. And this again happens in India. This happens in Italy. This happens everywhere. We need to start from there, but it's a long process because it's a cultural shift that needs to happen. So it will take a lot of time.
Mm-hmm. So just another question that pops up in my mind is, in most of the organizations today, we have, developing women in leadership programs. And as part of that program, I see a commonality, and the commonality is building financial acumen for women. Now, my question to you would be, do you really think women lack in financial acumen? And that needs to be really, really developed so that they can break the glass ceiling? So what's your thought on that?
Yeah, this is very easy. It's a very easy question. Of course not. We don't see, I don't have any statistics, any correlation or econometric causation to say this. So this is not my experience. I had a career in investments before, and it was a very well diversified. Probably the best traders I was dealing with were women. So I don't think there's anything of this, and we cannot claim anything of this. And I would even say, standing here in India, we have a finance minister for the first time who is a woman. So this just is it's a basic way to see that there's no such difference at all. I don't see it. There are developments programs where finance acumen is important, but it's important for male and women. It is quite an important skills in business to run businesses or to run functions to have. Given the fact that more women are entering the organization and they are growing, then I imagine this is why there's.
Okay, thank you. Yes, you had some points.
So I think it's not about just the financial teaching them on financial discipline. I think everybody understands basic finance, but even a guy needs to be trained on business skills. So getting women trained, I don't think it's just putting it to the women, but I think that's one thing which gets left out, and it's good which organizations which are doing it, because even men need it. So I don't think, many of the trainings are common for both men and women, because both need leadership development in various areas, and I think taking it from there. Just to give on a lighter note, when Lehman Brothers collapsed, somebody asked if it would be Lehman Sisters, would it have collapsed?
Oh, yes, yes. That well summarizes, in response to the question asked. So coming back to you, Manish, I just want to hear from you, and the audience would love to know this. The voice that is built around gender inclusion and things on media, be it print, be it audiovisual. What is the momentum that is being built, and how far does it translate to the real scenario on ground zero?
I mean, the world doesn't move on its own. You have to get up and push it every day. And I think that, there are obviously, I don't know whether they're vested interests. So there are people who sort of benefit from the status quo in anything. There are people who benefit from labor laws. There are people who benefit from a banking system where you can take loans and don't have to return them. There are all kinds of, in India is poor for various reasons. The regulatory cholesterol is one of them only. But I think that the notion that this issue is, I don't understand. The issue needs more attention, are you saying? Or are you saying the issue is not getting more attention, and why?
Is it oversell, overkill, or is it under? Just your perspective on that.
But I don't think there's anything such as oversell for fixing any injustice. All labor market outsiders the infrastructure of opportunity in India is broken. You know, choosing your parents wisely, choosing your PIN code wisely, choosing your gender wisely is obviously the three most important decisions any child in India makes from a labor market outcome perspective. That can be changed. This is not a problem like cancer or climate change. This is a plumbing problem. But I do think you need to fight for it. I mean, nobody gives power. Power is always taken, and it has in anything. So I think that people who believe that this is an important issue should stand up and talk about it and write about it and scream about it and shout about it. I mean, I just think that I have learned that Keynes was right. It is ideas who matter in the end. We always think vested interests matter, but if you fight the battle for ideas, I mean, I have written 450 articles in the last 15 years about labor law reform and skill reform and, you know, banking reform and everything else. And, you know, at some days it might seem frustrating, but I think we're making progress.
Right there. So I kind of got reminded of He-Man, a serial in television, many, many years back, and I remember that statement, I am the power. So I guess we need to say that to ourselves every day, keeping us reminded that the power lies within us and it's us who needs to fight for it. And nobody gives you a space to step in. So with that, I would open it up for audience interaction. Please feel free to ask questions to any of the panelists. The stage is all yours, audience. Oh, we have a question there already.
Check. I'm Geeta Sri. I'm coming from Hinduja Global Solutions. And I work as a senior manager for the diversity and inclusion team. And I've joined this team about 1.5 years now. So as you all know, the D&I team has got 3 different segments. One is gender, one is person with disability, one more is LGBT. So I handle the person with disability. So the major challenge that I'm facing is, I can say that the person with disabilities are trying to, play their victim card. So, we feel very difficult to handle them, and they consider themselves as, that I have a so-and-so disability. It could be a hearing impair, it could be a locomotor disability, and I need to be, taken care very specially, and I need to be treated specially, and so and some of them feel that, even if we try to treat them specially, they say, no, I'm not, why do you feel that I'm so disabled, I don't need any help. So there are 2 different categories of people we come across. So I don't know how do we handle them is a, question that, I don't know if I'm asking the right question, so anyone from the panelists can answer this.
So you're right. Diversity certainly spans all those vectors, and people with disabilities is an important inclusion criteria. I'll tell you, quite frankly, we have not done well on that. And we've been meeting different organizations that are training people in that area. And initially, what they told us was don't lower the bar at all. Right? It was odd for us. Right? We have a pronounced bias for Tier 1 universities in India, IIT, BITS, so on and so forth, right? We get brilliant minds as developers that come in. And we're looking for people to run at that velocity. And when somebody told us, don't lower the bar, it caught us quite by surprise. Right? Having said that, what you talked about is to find that right mindset that believes that they're not constrained by that disability and to find the right role and function for them and provide them the enabling tools to be able to be productive is equally a journey of discovery that we're going through. Have we solved it? Absolutely not. Right? Is it part of our ambition to be successful in this fiscal year? It certainly is. Will it happen this fiscal year for us? It won't be the end of the journey. So it is a tricky situation, but when we do this screening and selection of people like that, we are looking more at the behavioral side of that role and how they embrace that ability or disability. Depends on which way they're looking at it. We're looking forward to imbibing and onboarding people that see that ability as being value additive in the organization versus something that is pitied or elsewhere. But clearly, we've got a long way to go, so I'd love to learn more from anybody here on the PWD journey specifically as to how can we get better at it, because we have not cracked that.
We have a question here.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Ira Gilani. I'm from Golrat, India. One of the points that has been discussed since morning is man or woman, competence is the main thing, and I think all of us agree, and we are at a level where we've experienced that. Having said that, my question, and any of the panelists can answer, does it happen that women, despite of being competent, fall victim to politics? Anyone can fall victim to politics, but does it happen then when it comes to getting leadership roles, women may fall victim to politics just because of sheer numbers? And if so, what are some of the coping strategies that women can take help of in case they find themselves being shortchanged or passed over for leadership roles?
You want to define politics?
I'll give you an example. Just men being more, just by sheer numbers saying, deciding on her behalf that it could manifest through unconscious bias that no, this role is abroad, she's not going to be willing to take it up. And sheer, without even giving her the offer, men deciding among themselves, no, she's at an age, we can't make her the CEO, she's just getting married, she's going to have a baby.
That's not politics, that's illegal.
No. So it could manifest in different ways. Some of it could be through unconscious bias, and politics could be it could also be something like what we see in the country, a group of people getting together and saying that, no, even if you don't have the numbers, we want you to become the CEO or the president or whatever. And so what I'm saying is, any kind of decision factor, it could be family, it could be friendship, anything which is given importance over meritocracy, and the person on the receiving end being a woman. So my question, again, I'll just rephrase because you've said a lot of things. Do women fall prey or are women more often victims of office politics? And if so, are there any coping strategies that they can use?
So the answer is yes. Yes, the biggest problem we have now, as I said before, is not pipeline, it's how to make sure that women have the same amount of opportunities that men have. We have a big problem on that. Also because at times it's not open. So it's as you call it politics, right or wrong, I don't know, but it is something that is not clear and openly said, because you cannot do that, because it's not sustainable. What we've been doing, what I've been doing, is starting from the top. As always, the tone of the top and the leadership team is extremely important for a company to set things right and to set the right model. No, so I think it's the first condition is that one. Have the involvement of the topmost executives in the company. Make sure the leadership team is diverse as much as possible, and then slowly percolate down a culture that gives immense opportunity to no matter the gender, but more talent.
Any suggestions for someone who's on the receiving end, if somebody finds that she's being passed over for a promotion or something due to politics? Any suggestions?
Any suggestions, sorry, on?
If somebody, if I am in a situation where I feel that I could be sidelined for a role because I'm a woman, what can I do to kind of go and claim that?
Well, there's many things, I must say. One is if you have some sort of facts, confront the person, the situation. There's HR directors in the company. There are bigger companies that have diversity and inclusion officers. So there's a lot to do around it. It's just a matter that at times it's not easy because it's not clearly written in an email. It's not really recorded somewhere. So the only thing you can do is to try to confront and try to keep on making sure that that is open to you the opportunity. But there's not much.
Thank you.
Well, I would say if I was subject to politics, I would go and read, or I will, and I have read Kautilya's Arthashastra, which says the response to politics is Sam, Dan, Dand, Bhed. right? You don't deal with, and I think you're confusing a lack of meritocracy with politics. Politics is not a bad thing. Politics will always exist, and meritocracy is a different vector. Politics and meritocracy are not fair comparisons. Politics can be meritocracies, and politics cannot be meritocracies. But there are any organization where there are people will have politics, and the way to deal with politics is to play politics better than the other person.
Exactly. Thank you.
Exactly. You had something to mention there?
Well, let me give you a different perspective or a different term for politics. At least in the organization that we're in, we're looking at a concept called vulnerability, right? And how do you kind of understand what that is and appreciate the diversity of thought associated with being vulnerable? Now, as humans, I think vulnerability exists in everybody, right? And we had the opportunity to meet a great author called Dr. Brene Brown. And she has a book out there that I encourage all of you to read, Dare to Lead. It's a wonderful interpretation, right? That's one out there. And I'll share with you another one. I have this great bad habit of reading a lot. I don't want to get the title wrong. But I came across this. It's on order from Amazon.com, our fellow Amazon.coms. Those magnificent women and their flying machines, right? It's ISRO's mission to Mars again. And it's written by Minnie Ved. I'm really looking forward to reading that. And this is something, as we discover nuggets like this, we tend to share it with as many people in the organization. We tend to have a Learn with Leaders session, right? It's like your little private book club where people come in and discuss it, debate it, right? But these are great inflection points, right? Politics, vulnerability, other terms, right? Par for the course in a lot of organizations. To believe that that is going to be a binary, that it's either going to be absent or present, I think would be naive on all of our parts. Right? As Manish said, they'll be there in different shades of grays, in different interpretations, and different cultural indexes depending on the DNA of the organization. So don't shy away from it. Yeah, become a better chess player in one sense, right? And outmaneuver.
Any more questions?
I have just one question.
Time for one or two? Okay. Yes, please.
Can I go ahead? Yeah. I'm sorry if I'm batting for another gender here, but I just wanted to understand at your level, how do you tackle a problem like this? Because in recent times, I've noticed that there are companies, earlier given two equals, they would prefer women to ensure that there's diversity in your workforce. From that, they've gone to recruiting strategies where they say, we only want women this year. So how do you be fair to the other gender while you're trying to, work on the diversity in your company? Because we don't want to be doing wrong to the other gender as well, right?
Yeah, the big question of reverse discrimination.
So look, I told you up front, we don't drive on quotas. We don't drive on any of those things. We understand that from a cognitive basis, men and women have equal cognitive skills, right? So it can't be nature that we can blame. It's how do we nurture that capability, recognize it, and onboard it. Right? So I don't believe, and we talk about these unconscious biases and being agnostic and blind, that is the mantra that we're living. Right? I don't believe we look at it, to your example, and say, let's hire a male or a female or a transgender or somebody else to make sure we get a checkbox in a metric that means nothing in the real world. At the end of the day, companies are about driving outcomes, right? And if you hire the wrong person to meet a checkbox on a template that gets published internally at best, maybe as a feel-good factor, maybe more meaningfully, I think those outcomes that are much greater in value would be missed. So we haven't faced that problem. We don't prescriptively go to market. We absolutely ask our teams to help source diverse candidates, right? But we'd love to be blind in assessing them for their true competency and capability and onboarding them with that merit in mind and the outcome that they'll shape, than the color of their skin, their religion, their race, their culture, whatever. Right? So fortunately, I think we've been very prescriptive to that regard.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So.
Thank you. Yes. We had another question here. And probably the last question in the motion.
as a part of the board. Did you get my you didn't? Okay. So a lot of the board composition for females is limited to the support roles. So HR, of course, you get it, they need to be there. Just to tick the box to say that there are 30% female leaders, you have legal, you have finance. The true business leaders actually are lacking. Where do you see this move transcending to? Where do you get the more business P&L oriented leaders as a part of the board? Do you see that changing in your own organizations? Do you have those P&L leaders who are part of your board?
So I can just give you, again, from my consulting field experience, in the last 5 years, the 3 CEOs, the big 4 I'm talking now, because I worked with in the big 4, 3 CEOs of America, which is all of them maybe 10 billion plus practices, US dollar 10 billion. There were 3 females. 3 of the big 4 had 3 female CEOs, chairmen, CEOs. So I think I can see it changing quite a lot. The number of partners who are coming into the consulting field, the number, banking industry is a good example, right? You've got maximum number of CEOs are females. Even the State Bank of India had a lady CEO and did extremely well in the role and are very accomplished. So I can see it happening across industry. So it's not, and when we are talking of board, I'll just, like you are saying about legal or this, I'm saying we take it above, like board is for governance, executive team is for management, and then you have that. So I can see a number of women who are actually driving business lines. And first of all, I think, may I ask the question back to women, do they really want to drive it? I can give you one example. I was once talking somewhere, and as I was walking out, a girl came and one of the women sitting in the audience came and said, will you be my mentor? And I didn't know her. And so I said, what's your problem? She said, the CEO succession planning is coming up, and I head HR. I'm one of the candidates being put up for that. But I know I won't get it because the guy who's looking after a business is going to get it or whatever. So I said, why don't you take a career change and move and look after one of the businesses? It'll take you 2 years later, 3 years later, but you will become a CEO. She didn't want to do that. So many times we have to ask ourselves, are we willing to take those initiatives to actually take on those responsibilities? Nobody claps with one hand. And the earlier question which you said, it's about initiative. If you take the initiative, I think people will see it. I can see a lot of, personally from where I sit, I can see a lot of change happening in this field and more leaders. There was General Motors had a lady leading it. So IBM, you take anybody, Pepsi. There are, earlier the problem was you didn't have many role models to look at. Today, I think there's innumerable role models to look at and see how they have crafted their careers and how they made it to the top. It's just not about becoming the CEO, but getting into the leadership roles or, like you said, the business roles. I can see that change happening. Personally, I can say, I don't know what others.
I guess before we wrap up, a quick question to the panelists, because I believe the audience are all power changers and influencers in their own ecosystem. Now, having said that, what do they take back from this panel, from the standpoint that I was quite emotional as I drove the conversation here, because D&I practitioners feel that they are not being heard. You continue to talk about it, but here you see the understanding, the intentionality, the conscious, inert sense of driving the agenda beyond gender into this realm of inclusion lies. But somewhere it's lost in the middle management. And it's not percolating down, and that's where the conversation around building an inclusive work culture, a safe and respectable ecosystem continues to be in the rooms that we are getting into. Diversity and inclusion being driven in as all in, so that everybody owns D&I as part of their own strategy, be it business, be it function.
I would say just in a one-liner, I imagine. So to all women to be very confident. At times, it's the culture of the company creates a bit of pressure for women to reduce the bar and not be confident enough. We, for example, in our company, we have a lot of talented people in heading line of business. Be confident and make sure you choose the right company, and when you are in the right company, that you advocate what you stand for and your capabilities.
Thank you.
Whenever you fight the battle of ideas, you can make the justice argument, which is very true, that this is unjust. Or you can make the self-interest argument, right? And in any advocacy, while justice is the opening balance or where it starts, if you shift to the self-interest argument, that diversity leads to, cognitive diversity leads to more success, it's more profitable or whatever. I think we have to shift the argument. The justice argument is really important, and I'm not undermining it. But the battle for hearts and minds often is one heart and a mind at a time, and self-interest is often a much bigger driver of change in every aspect of life than justice.
Completely.
We all recognize justice, we all want justice, but we prefer self-interest. So if we can hitch our wagon to the self-interest wagon of managers or of companies or of boards, then we will do better.
Powerful. Yes.
I'll answer it slightly differently, not exactly diversity. I'm a strong believer in higher purpose. And I think when we have a higher purpose and we are able to answer the question why, of the why of our life, I think most of us cannot answer it. We know the how, we know the what, or we may know the what, or we may know the how, but the why is a very difficult one. When you find that, I think you would have found your purpose. And once you find your purpose, I think it's very, very different.
Yeah, so very simple, just ask why.
Yes.
So let me answer this very personally. I opened with a quote, so I'd love to close with a quote. And I'll say this as a father of 3 beautiful daughters.
Wow.
And it's a quote by Grace Hopper. And she said, "A ship in port is safe, but that's not what ships are built for." So be the ships. Get out in the open oceans. It is a tenacious journey. It is not a safe journey. It's a journey that will challenge us in many, many different ways. It'll inspire us, it'll perspire us, right? It will certainly give us, as one of the earlier speakers has talked about early, not knowing what you're going to do, but embracing that challenge and change really will help all of us grow. And it is a journey as a father, as a husband, as a son. I've been blessed to having been in the minority my entire life. I'm 20% in my family. I went out and got a male dog to help the odds. But it's blissful, in my case, to having been the minority very personally. And it's a journey I'm looking forward to learning more about, because I hope with the inspiration that all of you will bring to this forum and beyond, the daughters that I have, as they grow up, will certainly benefit and realize the ability to scale to the heights that they believe they can get to.
Thank you so much. Nothing could have been more powerful than this. A big round of applause for the entire panel. And thank you all for being here.
Panelists, please remain on stage for a group photo. And I'd like to invite Ms. Charu Thapar to come and hand over the certificates, please. Thank you all for a very interesting discussion. Hold it, Manish. Thank you once again. We'll now take an hour's break for lunch. Remember, this is a great opportunity for all of you to network and engage with the panelists as well as with your peers. As we have a long day ahead of us, could you please return to your seats when you hear the bell at 2:05, when we will begin the next session. Thanks again.